things, two boxes that need to be ticked in order for a person to have a real Torah entity of meat and dairy, of Basar BeChalav. Okay? Now, what are the two boxes? Number one, the meat and the milk must come from a kosher animal. The second requirement is that it must be coming from a domestic animal. Domestic is like a cow. Okay, a bull is also considered a domestic animal. A deer is not considered a domestic animal. Therefore, for example, deer is a kosher animal. If you cook deer meat in cow's milk, since you're not fulfilling all the requirements, that's not going to be a Torah-based prohibition of meat and dairy, because the deer is not a domestic animal. It may be kosher, but it's not domestic, even though the milk is kosher and domestic. But you have to have those two requirements in the meat and in the dairy.
Bull's not kosher.
Bull?
Yeah.
Bull's kosher. Yeah.
So you can't drink deer milk?
No, you can. I'm saying the combination.
Okay.
Because the combination we're talking about, have you found deer milk anywhere, by the way?
No, never.
In any case, but that's what we're saying, is that the combination that would be prohibited by Torah law is only if it fits both boxes, the meat and the dairy. That's what we mentioned yesterday. Now, then we moved on, and that's the next piece I want to speak about, and that is the rabbinical extensions. Now we're going to get much more practical. We spoke out that we're going to be speaking about eating meat in proximity of dairy. We're going to be speaking about the waiting time between meat and milk. Do you wait after eating milk? After eating meat? You wait? You know the such halacha, waiting after meat? How long do you wait, Sally?
Meat to dairy?
Yeah, meat to dairy.
3 hours.
3 hours, okay.
That's my father.
Great. How long do you wait, Sally? 6. Okay, so there's different customs. There's another custom that... 1. Holy Yidden from Amsterdam, they wait 1 hour.
You wait 1 hour?
Yeah, because you live on cheese.
That's right.
You
You wait 1 hour?
I used to wait 1 hour.
Why?
It's a this is like a very sensitive point you're right now touching, like you're hitting the nerve right now. Because I used to keep 1 hour. I'm a real Dutch guy, but Dutch passport, you know?
Why so?
Dutch. And I wanted my wife, after we got married, to also keep 1 hour. We usually used to keep 6 hours. So I call up a very senior rabbi here in Israel, like one of the most senior rabbis here, to make sure that it's all okay, that my wife can go down from 6 hours to 1 hour. And the conversation didn't end up the way it's planned. He's like, okay, so let's back up a step, he said. So you're saying that you keep 1 hour? It's like, yeah. It's like, but where do you live right now? So it's like, I live in Jerusalem right now. And he asked me a couple of other details. He says, nah, you should be keeping 6 hours. So I hung up the phone.
There was a hole in the wall.
Yes, that was it. In any case, no. But whatever. I'm at the end of the day, I'm happy I did that, because living in a community here where everyone keeps 6 hours, you know, it does make sense. And Baruch Hashem, we got used to drinking black coffee, so we're okay. We're good. We're good. In any case, we're going to be speaking that out, and we're going to be speaking also about eating meat after cheese. Can you eat meat after cheese? Do you need to wait after that?
You mean cheese after?
You should wash your mouth.
Meat after cheese. You eat cheese,
And yeah.
and afterwards you want to eat meat.
30
Don't
minutes.
you have to rinse out your mouth?
Yes, rinse out is a few steps, depending if you ate a solid, depending on if you ate a liquid, if you had like a cup of coffee, or if you ate like a piece of cheesecake or whatever it is.
If it's hard cheese, then
If it's hard cheese, if you had Parmesan sprinkled on your salad, you may have to wait longer. Okay, we're going to speak that out.
30 minutes.
Yes, and we're going to be speaking about, this is the most complicated piece, food cooked in a meat or dairy pot. This is going to get very complicated. This is the most complicated part, but I'm give you a heads up. This is what's coming also. If you cook a food in a meaty pot,
A part of food or just
a part of food in a meaty pot that has no meat in there, but it's a meaty pot, can you afterwards eat that with cheese together, that part of food?
No.
No. You can only use meat and vegetables.
Okay, so that's really not so simple. In many cases you can.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm going to speak this out when we get there. This is probably like the most complicated piece of
That's what I assumed
the
here.
laws of it. Right, so it's not like that. Right. In any case, okay, so let's start first things first. Okay, so let's speak a little bit about eating meat in close proximity of dairy. Okay, I'm going to give you two scenarios. Either you're eating by yourself, nice relaxed lunch by yourself. You went out, you went to Holy Bagel, got yourself a or better example, not Holy Bacon, but the Burgers Bar across the road,
Oh.
or to the meat station. You got a nice meat meal, and you come back here, there's nobody here, and you see a piece of cheesecake on the table, the same table. Could you eat like that or not? What's the
I
halacha?
think you might have to cover the part you're eating.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a dining room table. So
Eating
that-
alone. One is not supposed to eat meat on a table that has milk on it. That's the basic halacha. Okay, the same is true when you're eating, obviously, the opposite way. If you're eating something dairy, there's a piece of meat on the table, that's not supposed to happen. Why? Because we are concerned about the following. This is very logical. That you may absentmindedly reach out to the other food and eat it. Because you're spaced out. You're eating, you're reading a book, listening to music or a shiur, and you're just absent-minded, you may reach out to it. Okay, so because of that, the halacha is that if you have any type of reminder on the table, which we were going to speak out soon, then it's not a problem. But the easiest thing to do is, if you make sure that, for example, the cheesecake is not within hand reach of from where you're sitting, then you're okay. You understand that? So if you're sitting here and the cheesecake is here, your meat station is here, that's a problem. But if you just move it further away, and it would require you to get up to take a bite out of the cheesecake, we're not worried you're going to do that. You're keeping kosher. You're committed to keep kosher. You're not planning on eating meat and dairy together. Over here, there's a completely different issue. There's an issue that absent-mindedly, you may reach out to that food when you're sitting down and pick some of that cheesecake and eat it. That could happen. So because of that, simple fix, just make sure to move the cheesecake a little bit further away and you're good to go. That's a very simple halacha. Does that make sense? Great. That's the easiest way to go for it. Now, what about eating in company? Okay? Eating in the same way, Chazal also made it prohibited for two people to eat at the same table if one of them eats meat and the other one eats dairy. Meaning the same way that we spoke out, you can't have cheese on the table and have meat. That's also true if you're eating together. That means that, Gila, if you have your meat station shawarma and you have your bagel with cheese on it, okay, then you can't eat at the same table. Okay, you can't eat at the same table. What's the concern over here?
What's the concern?
What's the
You
problem?
might share food or something.
So this is very interesting. What's the concern? What's the concern?
Like-
So I can understand in the case of the cheesecake, specifically, let's say in my house, my dining room, if there's a piece of cheesecake on the table and I'm eating something meaty, so like that's like my family's food. Like I'm not going to be eating someone else's food, like in a public place. But like this is obviously the cheesecake from the fridge, whatever. So I may eat it.
Cross-contamination.
But what's the issue over here that we're eating?
Crumbs. Like shit.
Oh. So over here, the issue is that you may end up sharing food. Now, because of that, this entire halacha is only applicable when you have a friendly acquaintance, as I call it, that it is socially accepted in your current setting to share each other's food. Okay?
No.
I mean to say is that if you're sitting with, let's say, a business partner for lunch, like, you're not going to be likely today, let's say if that person has like a little side dish or something like that, you're not going to start taking his food. That's socially not acceptable. That's weird. You understand what I'm saying? You got what I'm saying? That's strange. But if you're sitting, I don't know, like let's say I'm sitting with my wife, let's say having lunch, and she was interested in having something that is dairy, and I was having something meat. So I made her take something like it's not strange. It's like in a way more accepted. You can pick some of each other's things and taste something, whatever. That is a concern. That is the halachic concern over here. Therefore, eating at the same table, it's illegal.
I came in here earlier and you weren't.
Oh.
It's like it was 12:15. There's class. Yeah.
Oh, they were
It's a bit late,
still
though.
finishing off. Yeah, it's more like 12:20. In any case, so that's the concern is that you're going to share food. That's what it is. And therefore, the whole problem is only applicable if you know each other that well that you guys would share food. Okay? So that is where the whole problem starts. It's with a friendly acquaintance. So let's say that you're sitting with a friendly acquaintance. And, you guys are chilled, you have you buy some things, there's some side dishes or whatever, you open up the box on the table, you'll generally share a bit here and there. Okay. So, how can we permit such a situation? What do you do if you are finding yourself in a situation like that? Okay. So, number one, you can put a reminder on the table. What does a reminder mean? A reminder, you can put a random object on the table. Because the object will remind you. It will be a reminder like, hey, I remember that there's something here I need to remember. Now, what do I mean with a random object? To put a vase with flowers on my dining room table, that's not a reminder because that's an object that typically goes on a dining room table. That's normal, right? But if I put something else on a table that's not typically normal, I don't know, can't really like, I don't know, my speaker that I don't know, my JBL speaker, I never put that on my dining room table. I'll put it here.
Yes.
Okay? You do that. Random example. But let's say that's not what I normally do. So that's my reminder. I know that's here on the table to remind me of something, to remind me that I'm not going to be sharing food over here because we're eating opposite types of foods. That's just one thing you can do. Another thing you can do, you can eat off two separate tablecloths. Because that will also, that's considered an halachically you're eating off a different table. If you have one tablecloth, you can also lift up the tablecloth and you can eat not off the tablecloth, for example. You can do that too. You can eat off separate placemats. I would say that only helps if you normally don't eat off a placemat. Some people always have placemats when they eat, so then it's not a typical, change. But if you eat off different placemats, that could also be fine. In my parents' house, they had the blue placemats and the red placemats. So, in theory, you can eat the blue placement, I'll eat the red. Okay, this is pretty clear. Like, we're eating, opposite foods, So, whatever. There's many different ways that you can make sure to have a reminder or eat it from a different tablecloth, lift up the tablecloth, eat off different placemats. These are all different examples of making sure that you're not going to be sharing food. And obviously, the most typical example that I can tell you about is you can sit far away from each other, far enough that you will not end up mistakenly to take food from each other. The same way we spoke out that when you eat alone, and you're eating something that is meaty, you can take that dairy food far away from you so you won't absent-mindedly reach out to the food. The same thing is also true if you sit far away from each other because you're not planning on eating meat and dairy now. The whole concern is absent-mindedly. So therefore, if you're sitting right now across of each other, you may share foods, but what you can do is you can pull up your chair a little bit further over here and you're not going to be able to reach out to the food. So that is, in such a case, it is completely permitted to eat from each other's food, okay? That is very important. Now, what about eating together with a non-Jew? What about that? So the halacha is that one may eat meat on a table with a non-Jew who is eating dairy, provided that the non-Jew is eating non-kosher food. Fascinating.
If he's
Why?
eating kosher food.
If he's eating kosher food, then we have the same concern.
Right.
If the non-Jew, the whole problem starts only if the non-Jew is such a friendly acquaintance that you would share food. Okay? That's obviously what we're talking about. But even after that's true, that non-Jew is a friendly acquaintance of you would share food. If his food is not kosher, then we know that even absent-mindedly you're not going to take his food because you just know, his food is not kosher. You're not even going to reach out to it. That far we know that. But if he's eating kosher food, and he's a friendly acquaintance, so then it falls back into the same category as before, and then you'll have to have the right safety measures in place, either sit far away from each other, or have different placemats, or tablecloths, or a random object on the table. These things will always help to make sure it doesn't happen. Okay, now these halachos I just spoke out are super relevant, specifically like I would say in yeshiva, where people very often order or take their own food, different foods, they eat together in the dining room. You may find yourself downstairs tonight and one guy ordered this, the other guy has that from the Rova. This is something that happens very often, very frequently. So here you know, this is what it is. First thing is oh, I know that guy from the Moshav. He's actually my roommate and we so much guys. It's not so weird for us to take a piece of chips. Okay, chips is parm in this case, but a similar type of side dish, you would theoretically take from each other. So if it's an opposite type of food, so just be aware, put a random object on the table, sit a bit further away from each other. These are the right halachos that take into place. That's all you gotta know of eating dairy in proximity of meat, eating meat in proximity of dairy. These are the halachos. So again, we spoke about that scenario one, you're eating alone. So you gotta do is just sit a bit further away. And if you're eating with each other, then there are multiple ways of avoiding any potential issues. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. On that note, I would like to continue. We have a few more minutes, and I would like to start speaking about waiting time between meat and dairy. Okay? This is very fundamental. Yeah.
I know you were saying about if you cook meat in parm in a meat pan. What about a fryer? If I just fried some schnitzel, if I fry the fries, the fries are meat regardless.
Are they fried in oil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just switch the oil out or have a different fryer.
If you switch the oil out and it's been within 24 hours,
We're still
that'll be depending.
Yeah.
It will be flesh again. Yeah. But it depends on 24 hours, and if it's clean, then everything will speak to that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's up.
If you just like cook vegetables in a meat pot, you can put dairy on that? You said that?
It depends if the meat pot is an Eino Ben Yoma. If it's not being used for 24 hours,
It's not been, okay.
not being used for 24 hours, and you put pasta in it. You cook, for example, pasta in it,
Sure.
and afterwards you can use the pasta and put a dairy sauce over it.
You can't put
Really?
any
Huh?
dairy in the pot.
Yeah.
You can't put dairy in the pot. You could have par food. That's like very complicated, but it could sometimes be a solution for people who want to keep kosher and only have one pot.
Why? How does the status of the pot change in 24 hours? It's not like the taste
Okay,
is
so we
used
have
or
a rule
anything,
that
the pot
taste-
changes.
It does. Actually, the taste particles that are absorbed have a expiration time. They expire after 24 hours. Okay, after 24 hours they're considered unfresh,
Alright.
and therefore it goes down to rabbinical level. And when you cook a par food in there, so then it doesn't absorb it as such, and therefore you can have it with dairy afterwards. But we'll speak about this halacha clearly when we get there. Again, that is like the most complicated piece of laws of meat and dairy. It's very confusing, and people very often confuse them and mess up. But we'll get there when we get there, I guess. Okay, so about waiting time. We're going to speak about the source where it says actually that. Where does this whole waiting thing come from? Like, where does it say that? We're going to go through some sources. The Gemara highlights the reasons why we actually wait between the dairy, and how the early commentators interpret that. And that will take us further to today's halacha. We're going to actually take it from Gemara all the way until today's halacha. That way we can understand how actually we get to where we are nowadays. So we'll go through the different opinions, and we'll also see that in certain cases people can be lenient with those hours. Now, typically, are there any Sephardim in this class? Any Sephardi guys? Because the waiting time for Sephardim is definitely more stringent. Okay, we'll speak that out later. That the 6-hour period of time is the Rambam's opinion, and Sephardim they go with the Rambam. We also, many of us go with the Rambam in this regard, but we'll do it as a stringency, and therefore in certain scenarios we can be lenient.
They also can't have like fish and cheese together.
Sephardim kind of fit
together.
together.
I found that out this year. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, that's not fair.
Can't
Yeah.
have lox, cream cheese.
Right, exactly. Okay, so let's go through some of the Talmudic sources. It says in Chulin 105a, the Gemara says the following. Rav Chisda said, one who eats meat is forbidden to eat milk. That's what it says afterwards. But then he says, however, one who eats cheese may still eat meat afterwards. That's one statement about eating meat and dairy one after the next. So Rav Chisda made that statement and said, after you eat meat, it is forbidden to have milk or cheese. After you eat cheese, it is permitted to have meat. That's one statement. Again, pretty unclear what that means and what the parameters are. Then there's another Gemara from an Amora. Mar Ukva was his name. Mar Ukva said that his father would refrain from eating cheese after eating meat for an entire 24-hour period of time.
Wow.
24 hours, guys.
It's a big decision. You got that.
Oh, that's a big decision. Yeah, don't worry, you're not going to walk out of this class with that idea. Okay? So he would eat meat and afterwards not have cheese for 24 hours. So you guys think, oh, this is not for me. Mar Ukva himself also said that. Mar Ukva said, this is not for me, and I'm only going to wait. I'm going to refrain from eating cheese or milk until the next meal. That's what Mar Ukva
Next what?
meal. Meal.
Sounds about good.
So this sheds a little bit more light on waiting time. Mar Ukva said, my father would not have cheese after meat after another 24 hours. He would wait 24 hours until he had cheese. But then he said, I'm not doing that. I'm not that stringent. I'll make sure that after I eat meat, I will not eat cheese until the next meal. Oh. So now this is where the entire discussion starts in the early commentators. And they have a discussion. So how long does that take until the next meal? What does that mean? You
Like
can't
a
have
minute, 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we snack all day
Hour.
nowadays, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, we eat all day. So I'm saying my next meal, I don't know my next meal is in half an hour, and then after that, probably have another meal an hour later. I don't know. We're Dutch, we eat every hour. But I'm saying, What does that mean? So what does a 6-hour period come from? So this is really what's very important, how we interpret this. Now, one more minute. The Rambam says that when Mar Ukva said until the next meal, that is considered, he was saying that as a measurement of time. Since meals at that point were generally spaced 6 hours apart, the Rambam rules that one must wait 6 hours. Mar Ukva said, you're not eating cheese until the next meal. And Rambam said in those days, people would have meals spaced out 6 hours from each other. That's what Mar Ukva meant. So you gotta wait 6 hours. That's the Rambam. Then we have Tosfos. You guys know where Tosfos is on the side of the Gemara?
Yeah.
You know what Tosfos said? Tosfos says that Mar Ukva meant something very different. When Mar Ukva said that meat and milk should not be eaten and he would refrain from eating cheese until the next meal, all he was trying to say is that you shouldn't have them in the same meal. That was what Mar Ukva was trying to say. But Ukva was just saying something very different. You shouldn't have meat and dairy in the same meal. You should wait at least till the meal's finished. Once the meal's finished, then you can have cheese. He wasn't saying you gotta wait till the next meal. He was saying something different. He's saying, in one meal, I'm not having meat and dairy. Obviously not cooked together. But he said, you wouldn't even have it like one after the next. Have first meat, and then for the next course have cheese. That he wouldn't do. You wouldn't have them in the same meal. So that would indicate that as soon as the meal's over, you can have cheese. But the Shach on the Shulchan Aruch adds on that even according to Tosfos, an interval of an hour would be required at least. So that's the source of 1 hour. That's where the 1 hour comes from. The 1 hour is not just something that local Dutch people did because they snack cheese all day. It happens to be true that we snack cheese all day, but I'm saying we actually wait 1 hour because of the opinion of Tosfos, which is the Ashkenazim, the Rambam brings. So that's really where this discussion comes from. Meaning the main sources are 6 hours and 1 hour coming from this Gemara. Yeah.
So there are a lot of people who like rinse out their mouth and like after eating dairy and like just like kind of like it's not like a full hour they wait. They just
After eating cheese to meat?
yes.
Yes, correct. We'll go through those halachas. There is basically no waiting time required at all, but the few steps you need to take are rinsing your mouth
Yes.
and washing your hands
Yes.
and maybe eating a part of food. We'll
Yes.
go through that. But
Like
yes.
a piece of bread.
Yes.
Or something.
Exactly. So we'll be going through those halachas and give you clear steps. Okay, guys? Let's leave it here for today and Bezrat